Good morning. Okay, we're going to have a fun morning. I'm just kind of setting you guys up to have a fun morning. Are there any announcements? Arlen?
I'm good.
Ty's coming.
You coming?
Yep.
It's kind of an announcement, kind of a prayer request thing.
This week I got a call, and a person inquired about Providential Homes, and so there's a good chance that we will have another home available, but we'd like a little bit of prayer behind it, because it's going to be a different sort of project, a fire-damaged house and thing in Eldora. So, kind of exciting thing, but it's also kind of like, well, we really want to tackle this, because the whole main level is smoke damage, so every inch of drywall and a few things are going to have to be out. So we want to be healthy, but we also want to take advantage of a great situation. And then there's another project in Eldora that's not, we've kind of expanded our horizons a little bit, and we're just helping folks, but a gal needs some repair work, and I think we can provide the labor, but they need to provide something as well. So, we want to seem gracious and helpful, but we don't want to seem like the enablers and just step in there and do it all. So, a couple of things that way, but it's kind of exciting. So, thanks.
Ty, I believe you had an announcement last week that you might want to redo.
Yeah, I'm having my graduation party here next Saturday from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. So everyone here is invited. And yeah, that's it.
Are you accepting cash gifts?
Yes.
I assume not Monopoly money, though. Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. Any other announcements?
I just wanted to point out that the beautiful rose heart is from the funeral of Joyce Marlene. Joyce was a person I did our lawn care service for, went into her house every week and prayed with her. We always recited the Lord's Prayer together. She passed away early last week. She's the mother of Deb Crosser, Tracy Marlene that runs Rock and Roll, and that family. Scott and Kelly are the other two children, but this is in memory and in honor of Joyce. Sweet, sweet lady.
You also had a close family friend that passed this past week, Dale. Dale?
I'm going to talk about him today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those of you who are familiar with Jim Steves, he also lost his son this past week, too. Ken Cook and Fred Marsh, those guys were in the same grade together, and they're very, very close still to this day, however many years later, 60, 70 something years later. But his son passed away, I believe, of cancer, I think it was, 58. So Jim is down in the Missouri area right now with family, so please keep them in mind too. I have an announcement also. Most of you guys were not aware of this left hand and right hand thing that I did last week. And that was done purposely so that the folks who were to be on the receiving end did not know what was occurring. So last week on the left hand, I said that our next Quaker Bakers is going to be the second Saturday in June. Meanwhile, on the right hand, Connie, Jean, and I, and Julie, we were preparing to do a Quaker Bakers delivery yesterday. We had about 21 deliveries. that we did, and we were trying to focus on the folks who had been volunteers or donors last year, 2016. So we wanted to say thank you to all those folks. I think they were surprised because most of them did not know we were coming. I believe we had one person say to us, "Oh, I was going to make something for that, but I forgot." Well, that's because we hadn't mentioned it. So we had a fun time doing the deliveries, but again, we wanted to say openly to you guys, thank you very much for supporting that mission. And as of yesterday, we are headed into our 5th year of Quaker Bakers. So expect more to come. And again, the next one is going to be in June, the 2nd Saturday. We'll meet in the Fellowship Hall at 10 a.m. So if you would like to join in, put it on your calendar, and we'll be more than happy to have you come in and have fun with us on that Saturday morning. Do we have any other announcements? All right, please stand and take a moment to greet your neighbors. Unfortunately, I have not got a chance to get back there, but good morning, Caleb. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming to worship with us. In case you guys are wondering who I'm talking about, Caleb, if you'll stand up real quick. Okay. This young man is Scott and Carol's son, Humphrey. In case you guys have not known who he is. Now you can place the families together. Thank you. And you're still driving over from Ames to be with us this morning, or Madrid? Okay, driving over from Madrid to be with us. Okay, thank you. If you will prepare, we're going to do our first century song, We Bow Down, and I'm going to step out so I can do the lyrics. And Jen, if you would come up and lead, or Jen can lead.
Arlen, would you lead?
Okay.
Yeah, would you please?
I would sing, but you know, that would take me away from the lyrics. Darn.
That's why the scripture said make a joyful noise unto the Lord.
Yeah, bad noise.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah. 154, We Bow Down.
Down and we
be seated.
And we'll do our call to worship, which is Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. As we prepare to take our offering, I will ask you to bow your heads, and I will do our prayer. This is a short prayer for peace. Father, my heart is filled with chaos and confusion. I feel as if I am drowning in my circumstances, and my heart is filled with fear and confusion. I really need the strength and peace that only you can give. Right now, I choose to rest in you. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well done, Marlene. Thank you. Let's rise together. 713, Seek Ye First. Let's take our hymnals or go to the screen for 368, He Lives. This will be a good one.
Jesus lives today. He walks with me
Well done. Please be seated.
The early friends often used allegory and metaphor to talk to each other spiritually, and one of the things they would ask was, has the stone been rolled away from the door of your heart? And that's what we just sung about the living Christ. Is your heart dead? Or has the stone been rolled out of the way so that Christ can dwell mightily in us? That's a good question. Each and every day, sometimes by moments, is Christ alive in us in ways that glorify Him and bring Him honor. I'd like to have the children come forward for a very brief children's moment. I will need the assistance of Ty Daniel Cook in the microphone. Ty Daniel Cook, are you in the house? There you are, brother. Come on down, Grace. You must be on holy ground, sister, no shoes. Take your sandals off, you're on holy ground. You know, the song we just sung talked about that Christ is always with us no matter what happens during our day, during our week. I want you to talk about one thing: happy, sad, glad, or mad that you experienced this week, that happened to you this week. Something happy or something sad. And Ty, you will be the mobile mover of the microphone, and Grace is already ready. Imagine that. She's ready to go. What's one thing that happened, glad or sad, this week?
Glad.
Well, can you tell us what happened? Did you get to care for Sadie? Yeah. Okay, excellent. Elizabeth?
Glad we won our first soccer game.
You won your first soccer game ever? Or just this season?
No, we had 2 soccer games and we won the first one.
Good job. Excellent. So a win at a soccer game? Anything else? Glad, mad, or sad? Caden?
I guess I'm still not ready yet.
What'd you say?
Not ready yet.
You're getting your thoughts together. Jordan, anything happened with you this week? Nothing that made you glad? Nothing? Nothing that made you happy?
Tommy got to be home and that made me glad.
Okay, Tommy got to be home this weekend. That made you glad. Elizabeth?
I got to go bowling with my friend Natalie and Dava.
You got to go bowling. Do you know someone you could take lessons from in this church that bowls quite a bit? Well, he's 81 or 82. His name's Lowell Brewer, way back there in the back. He's been bowling for a lot of years. His average is about 92. He's doing really well. Now, Jordan, I'm going to ask you again. Did something happen this week that made you really glad? That was special? Well, tell me about your dress and your corsage on your wrist.
Went to the father-daughter dance.
You went to the what?
The father-daughter dance.
The father-daughter dance. That wasn't special? A little bit, maybe? So you danced with your dad? Oh, man, that's awesome. Saw your pictures on Facebook. A handsome couple, you and Dustin, your daddy. Good job. Now, did anybody have something that happened to them that was sad? Elizabeth?
My friend's uncle got in a car crash.
Car accident? Okay. Grace, make you sad?
I don't remember.
You don't remember what made you sad? Okay. Caden?
Assigned seats at lunch now because we were acting really naughty at lunch.
Does that make you glad or sad? Oh, it makes you mad, okay. Because you don't get to sit by who you want to sit by, right? Are you having to sit by girls now? Is that what's going on? Girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy? Okay. All right. Now, one of the things I want you to remember. Uh-oh, Izzy, you have something you want to say? Something that made you glad or sad or?
My dad and Laura got me a mermaid tail on my birthday when I went swimming.
Oh, good. Excellent. Now, we've talked a lot about a lot of glad things, a lot of happy things. We've talked about a tragedy, a car wreck. But the thing I want you to remember is whether we lose the soccer game or we win the soccer game, Christ is still with us and loves us. Whether we get to sit by our friends at the table or we have to sit boy, girl, God is with us and loves us and is watching over us. And we get to go to the father-daughter dance. God is so delighted and is right there with you and your daddy. And Izzy, you got your mermaid thing, and you went to the free comic books day in Waterloo, which I didn't know that, first Saturday in May of every year. I don't know how big of a comic books fan you are, Ty. You might want to get over there sometime. Okay, your favorite character. And taking care of Sadie and going with Dad and Kara. Tommy being home. God is with us. Always speaking to us. Always near us. Loving on us. And even when sad things happen, when people don't treat us right, when people pick on us, when we have to do things in the house we don't want to do, God still loves us and is with us. Is He?
At the comic book, they had Thor standing on the roof, and guess what?
What?
Harley Quinn was actually Burkett's daughter, and guess what?
What? Ooh. Thor and Harley Quinn. I think you kind of like comic book heroes, don't you? Yeah. So I want you to always remember that we just sung about, even through the stormy blast, Jesus is with us. And when I'm walking, I hear His voice of cheer, that Christ is always talking to us. The issue is, are we listening? Are we listening to the Jesus in us and following His voice, His leading? That's what's important. Well, you guys are wonderful. Ty, what about you? Any glad, sad events in your life this week?
Yeah, I had a little fun this weekend.
Well, tell us about it.
We went down to Ames and watched Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh.
And I got a pair of shoes from Monte Morris.
From who?
Monte Morris, basketball player from Iowa State that's going to go to the NBA.
Is there a team in Iowa State?
There is.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. The only one I know is the one in Kansas. So Monte, is he a center, guard, or was he
Point guard.
point guard? Mm-hmm. Is he the one that's like one of the best in the country?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's fun.
Yeah.
I knew who he was. Take it easy. Well, let's pray together. Congratulations on that. And let's take our hands together. Lord Jesus, thank you for always being with us, whether we're winning or whether we feel like we're losing. But always let us know in our hearts that we're a winner in your eyes. No matter what's going on in our lives, whether things are good or bad, whether we feel good or not feel good, you are with us and love us. Help us always, always to remember that truth. Amen. Now, I would like you to go up and get your candy first. It's back behind there. Grace, wait, Grace. Wait, Grace. Jordan, just stand there a moment. Doesn't get much better than that, does it? A beautiful little girl. All right. Izzy, Grace, Elizabeth, you guys can go get your candy. Thank you, Jordan. You look so beautiful today in that dress. Thank you, young ladies. Gentlemen, tie?
I don't need how.
Thank you, brother. Awful sensitive about their basketball team here, aren't they?
So that comment, and trying to bring it back up here, that comment about the basketball team kind of made you guys sad, didn't it? Now, I think some of you guys know that I'm a Hawkeye because, you know, our daughter went to U of I, and that's where I wanted to go. So, but Iowa State, really?
I had to rub it in because they beat Kansas.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I'll go with the happy theme this morning because I wore this tie, and I told people that I would explain why I wore this tie today. It is to serve as a reminder that Father's Day is coming up, and this is not the tie you should be buying for them. If you look at this tie closely, it will either do one of two things, either hypnotize you or make you feel like you know, not having good feelings about things. I would say the word, but, you know, I might freak everybody out. So, if you want to take a closer look at this tie later, please feel free to do so. It is a tie that came from Des Moines from Franco's, $4 at the time that it was sold. Now, I tried tying this tie this morning, and I got this great big knot in it, and I thought, I will never wear this tie again. But I keep them around as a reminder of what not to buy or have somebody give me as a gift.
Soap on a rope for you, Kevin.
What's that?
Soap on a rope.
That's even worse, I think.
Yeah.
I think we bought my father the soap on a rope. I think it used to be Old Spice or Brut or something like that. After a while, we tried to hide it from him, but he kept finding it. So, anyway, John 10, 1 through 10. I tell you the truth, the man who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The man who enters by the gate is the shepherd of his sheep. The watchman opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize the stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but they did not understand what he was telling them. Therefore, Jesus said again, I tell you the truth, I am the gate for the sheep. All who ever came before me were thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. He will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full.
Well, I apologize for the slam against Monty and the Iowa State Cyclones. I'm so sorry. He is a great point guard, no doubt. As we look at John chapter 10, just want to make some exegetical notes. I've entitled this message, The Gift. I'm going to do this in a kind of a different way. The first part of it, kind of look at the text itself, and then I want to tell you what the abundant life that Jesus talks about looks like through another person. In verses 1 and 2, which you might want to throw the text back up there, Kevin. Very truly, I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The sheep pen in the first century was often built against a hillside with 3 walls covered with briars to keep out predators and thieves. There'd be a small gate where the gatekeeper or the shepherd himself would spend the night. Here in this story, it seems to be a pen that's in front of a home. Thus, a four-walled, stone-walled structure with briars on top is the picture that Jesus gives us. He calls his own sheep by the next phrase. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. Here is a beautiful picture. Frequently, Palestinian shepherds gave their favorite sheep nicknames, pet names. Hey, long ears. Hey, white nose. Hey, black stockings. That the picture that Jesus gives us about calling them by name is a picture of intimacy. The shepherd knows the sheep. He has given you nicknames. He knows what to call you and to call me. And this is the imagery that Jesus gives us when he says he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. The shepherd deeply knows his flock. The latter half of that verse, and leads them out, the Greek verb here is aegeon, and is used in some of the most important Old Testament passages about God. Mainly Exodus 34:13 and Numbers 27:17. I have grabbed the wrong thing. That's okay. In Ezekiel and in Numbers, Ezekiel refers to God as the shepherd that leads the nation, leads Israel out of the nations. And in Numbers, it repeats it twice. There will be a leader, a champion who will lead the people. And it's referring to Joshua. See, Joshua is the Aramaic for Jesus, the Hebrew for Jesus. And so John saying that the shepherd will lead them out is saying for us, Jesus is that great champion, that great leader that leads God's people to pasture, to nourishment, to life and love. It is so, so beautiful. He leads them out. Kevin, can I have that copy? I'm missing a page, thank you. In verse 4, when he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. Note that Jesus brings them out of the protection of the sheep pen, and he goes on ahead of them. In Palestinian and nomadic tribes of the Middle East, the shepherd went out to check for predators and animals, leading them to green pastures, usually on the northern slopes of the hills, because it held the dew of the morning, and the grass grew taller on the northern slopes. But also the nomads, this is really amazing, they knew how to get to the water holes where the still waters were to lead the sheep. Jesus here is giving us a illustration that he is the trailblazer. He's going on ahead of us, leading us to life and love, and that we follow because we know his voice. Jesus says earlier in the gospel, a time is coming and has now come when the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear will live. Now, if we think about the Gospel of John, we've already talked about smelly Lazarus who's been in the tomb for over 3 days. Jesus stands outside the place of death and calls into the place of death, Lazarus, come forth. Lazarus hears the voice of the Son of God and comes out of the place of death. Now we think of Mary in the garden who is weeping and sorrowing for the loss of Jesus, and she doesn't know where they've taken his body. And she speaks to a person that she believes is the gardener. And it isn't until the gardener says this, Mary, that her eyes are opened and realize it's the living Christ. They will hear his voice, and they will come out of the place of death and will live. In verse 8, all who've come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep do not listen to them. This is really interesting in the Greek. The Greek term for robbers is lestes. In all of the Gospels, this term is used to refer to nationalistic guerrilla warriors, revolutionary bandits who were trying to overthrow the Roman Empire and even killed some of their own fellow Jews who they believed were collaborating with Rome. We find out one of the lestes right in the Gospel of Luke, Barabbas, who's referred to as a revolutionary and was involved in insurrection in Luke 23:19. The Gospels make it clear that Jesus was crucified between two robbers, two of these guerrilla warfare fighters. That Jesus is misunderstood and is considered a threat just as the thieves and robbers and guerrilla warfare leaders were. Josephus, the Jewish historian, records a score of these lestes, these guerrilla fighters as self-proclaimed messiahs that started campaigns against the Romans only to be captured and executed by the empire. And when the church exploded with power at Pentecost and the church was formed, the leaders of Jerusalem, the Jewish leaders, were perplexed and wanted to destroy the church leaders. But a wise rabbi named Gamaliel refers to Thaddeus and Judas the Galilean, who started revolts and were subsequently executed. And later in Acts, another guerrilla warrior is confused with Paul when one of the soldiers accuses him, "Aren't you Paul, the Egyptian who started a revolt and led 4,000 terrorists into the wilderness some time ago?" And then Paul says, "No, I am born of Tarsus. I am a Jew." And he explains the difference between the Jesus movement that is nonviolent and the violent revolutionaries that we've just talked about. It's interesting, between the death of Jesus in 30 AD and the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD, Josephus gives us this long list of these warriors, these guerrilla warfare leaders who were captured and executed. Jesus warned his people, there will be many that will come and proclaim, "I'm the Messiah." And this is exactly what Jesus was talking about. These other would-be messiahs who were promising casting off Rome and peace and prosperity. And Jesus says, no, if you go down that route, if you don't turn the other cheek and go the extra mile, there will not be a stone left on top of the city walls of Jerusalem. And that's exactly what happened. Jesus says in the Gospel of Mark, he quotes Jeremiah, "Look, you have turned God's house into a den of robbers." It's the same word. A den of guerrilla warriors. And Jesus warned and pleaded with his people not to go that direction. But many did, and the entire nation suffered. If we go on to verse 9, "I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved." Here the image is clear that Jesus is the gate through which the sheep are given access to the pastures and also the protection at night in the darkness. There's beautiful images from the Middle East where at some of these sheep pens, the shepherd would actually lay across the gate opening and sleep at night. So here we understand how Jesus can be the shepherd and the gate. His protection, his presence, protecting us from the things that would want to destroy us, and then rising up and leading us out into life and green pasture and to still waters. In verse 10 at the beginning, the thief only comes to steal and kill and destroy. And the Greek term here, theon, is not the usual verb to kill. It has a connotation of sacrificial slaughter. And this is probably a subtle way of John saying that Jesus was against the temple, at least the outdated and corrupt form of the temple and the priesthood of Judaism. And then we come to the very last verse, the last half of 10b. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. This word is not bio, where we get the word biological. It's not about Jesus giving us biological life and having it to the full, because we know that often that doesn't happen. Jesus never grants us a life that's free from disease or death. He gives us Zoe. That's the Greek term. He gives us life, a living existence. And the reason that's such a great word is a living existence means that our existence is always constantly growing and changing. We're moving towards Christ's likeness. It's not that we stay static, that we stay small and narrow and selfish, is that we're always growing in the process. It's a beautiful word. And Jesus says, I've come to give you that kind of life. A life full of joy. Not just existence, but a life of thriving. Not just survival, but a life of flourishing. Not just getting by, but a life of joy. And Jesus offers in some more life to us than is completely imaginable to us. And this is where I want to talk about my friend Dale, who just died. Here was a man who was raised in a non-Christian family, born in northern Edgar County of Illinois. He grew up like any other boy, ornery. Sometimes he had to sit boy, girl, Katie. In fact, one of Dale's favorite things is when he was in junior high and they'd be out on the school grounds playing, he loved to help the girls get off the ground from behind. He enjoyed that. He was ornery. He met this little girl named Betty Smith, and he would take her ponytails and dip it in the inkwell in his desk. And they ended up falling in love in their early junior high and all through high school. They loved each other. And then he went off to war in World War II. He spent 27 months on Midway Island. He said, I saw the Goonie birds come 3 times and go. He served his country. He was non-combatant in World War II, spending his time on Midway. But he had lost a brother, Norman, on Saipan, which was one of the bloodiest battles of all of the Pacific in World War II. And he gave himself to his country. And then when he came back, he gave himself to his Betty, this Betty Jane Smith. Now, Betty Jane was a devout Christian. Dale was not. Dale was a good man, don't get me wrong, but he was not a believer. He was a farmer and he worked like a dog. He was about pencil thin. He smoked, and so he would work real hard so he could smoke. After they got married, Dale brought a 6-pack of beer home, and Betty said, I don't want any alcohol in our home. He never brought another beer can home out of his love and respect for Betty. Betty was this quiet, soft, tender-hearted Christian woman who never pounded on Dale to go to church, who never pleaded with him, who never begged him to go. But her constant Christian witness began to work in Dale. And then when Herb Lund, who drove a Volkswagen Beetle and was a pastor at Ridge Farm, Illinois, Herb had developed a relationship with Dale, and at Dale's kitchen table out there at the Pleasant View Stock Farm, Dale got down on his knees in his late 40s, and Christ got a hold of him. And Dale responded to that kind of love. Dale had heard the gospel through Herb. How will they know unless someone preaches? And how will someone preach unless someone is sent? Says Paul in Romans. And so Dale commits himself to the commitment that Christ had shown him on the cross. And from that time on, this man was on fire for Jesus. He went 30 plus times to Europe, South America, Mexico, building for Men for Missions. He met a man named Dave Fisher. You guys know Dave Fisher? Dale Lawrence was on a trip to South America or somewhere in the world with all of Dave and Merla Fisher's kids. And they wrote back talking about how godly and how humble this Dale was and how he had left such a deep impact into their lives. Now don't get me wrong here, guys. Dale was a sinner too. That's why he needed Jesus. But I'm telling you, of all the men I've met, he was the most godly, most wisest man I've ever come across. He gave generously of his time, his talents, his resources. He was the leader of our Quaker men's group in Ridge Farm. And what I mean by leader, he was not a person who manipulated or threw his weight around spiritually. But when it came to a decision time to spend big money out of the Quaker men's fund or whatever, people kind of waited to hear what Dale had to say. Not that he was running the show, but they wanted to hear the Spirit of Christ in that man about these issues. And then in the late 90s, this guy comes along. He gets married on a Friday night. He's scared to death. It's his first full-time pastorate. He and his wife moved to Illinois Saturday. And he's in the pulpit Sunday of his first full-time church. He is scared to death. He doesn't know what he's doing. He is so unsure of himself. And his name was Justin. Now, what I'm about to tell you cannot be any more than the truth. But that man saved my life. He saved my marriage. He saved my pastoral career. I was so unsure about who I was and about my decision to marry Krista. That has always been my nature. I've always doubted myself and my decisions. But Dale had the insight to realize I was hurting. He would come and sit on my porch and we would just talk. And this is some of the things he would say. These are the people you do not want to talk about this. You can talk to me. His wisdom, his guidance was so remarkable. In my life, when I asked to do things or had ideas, often those were shot down by my parents because we didn't have the time or the resources. And so I grew up kind of in a toxic shame environment. What I thought was not good enough, I'm not good enough. But with Dale, I would throw out an idea, and this is what he would say. Why not? Why not do that? I bought this little boat, a little 10-foot flat bottom with a 15-horse Evinrude on it. It needed bearings and some work. Dale had a great young man that worked for him named Kevin. And I said, man, this boat needs bearings, before I can use it. He goes, well, why not? Let's go get him. Let's get him on there. That was the kind of guy he was. Generous. For years, I never filled my vehicle up at a gas station. For years. I'd go out and have coffee with him at his table where he gave his life to Christ. You're a missionary. All the missionaries that come and visit my house get free gas. Go fill your tank up. For years he did that. His house was a revolving door of missionaries and Christians coming through and relatives. He and Betty were had the gift of hospitality, the gift of charity, the gift of tenderness and compassion, the gift of prayer. They were prayer warriors. Dale was a person who had lots of tragedy and sorrow too in his life. He came back from the Pacific Theater and They got married, and within a few months they were pregnant, and their first child was named Bobby. And Bobby was born with hydrocephalus, where the fluids around the brain build up and the brain cranium is elongated. Now this is 1946. And so Bobby was born. A state senator and a doctor came out and said, you know, the best thing for Bobby, he's probably only going to live to 1 to 2 years old. Probably the best thing for him would be go to an institution. And Dale talked about how he felt pretty attacked and put down and became very blue about this. I don't want to say the word depressed, because the man, I asked him once, have you ever been depressed? He said, no, never been depressed. And then Betty said this to Dale after the senator had come and the doctor. Dale, the Lord gave us Bobby, and we're going to take care of Bobby until he's gone. So every noontime, Betty would take Bobby and put him in the bathtub and bathe him, feed him every meal, changed his every diaper, changed his clothing on his bed, the bed that Don Hummerhouse's father built for Bobby, a tall, narrow bed that could go between rooms so Bobby could be wherever the family was. That's the stalk he comes out of. And so Bobby dies 1964 at the age of 18. 7-year-old body, a huge head, never uttered a word of thank you to Betty, to his mother. Could hardly make any kinds of sounds or groans. But they did it. They did it because they had their faith in God, especially Betty at that time. Dale's farmhouse, there's a sign outside of his front gate that says, the coffee shop. And every morning, farmers and people from Ridge Farm and Georgetown, Illinois would go to his house and have coffee around that table where he had given his life to Christ at the age of 49. And that table, we prayed for farmers who were struggling with financial problems, with mothers and fathers who were dying. That table was an altar in his home. I think of Paul who says, the church in your house. That's exactly what Dale and Betty had. Their house was a sanctuary. Our babies come along, and Dale and Betty, like many of you, became surrogate grandparents and loved on them and taught them things. And he had a wonderful way with every age group. He was a remarkable person, but still a sinner. But the point I'm trying to make look what occurred after he knelt down at the table. 30 plus trips all over the world. At Lagrina in Brazil, he helped build a building about this big out of cinder block, 466 cinder blocks, and with every block he prayed, one person coming to Jesus in this building. And about 10 years later, on a trip, the leader said, we're now over 500 people who have come to faith right here. His prayers answered. And that's the kind of man he was. But more importantly, he reflected the kind of God he followed. And that's the God I want to follow. You know, the Apostle Paul says something so strange in one of the epistles. He says, follow me as I follow Christ. And now I know, after the example of Dale, what Paul meant. I want to be generous. I want to be compassionate. I want to be helpful. I want my house to have an altar in it. I want it to be a place of sanctuary and hope for people. I want to make a difference for Jesus, just like you do. Dale's life then converted his grandson, who is now on fire for Jesus. Yes, Dale farmed the farm, bought land, did all these things to keep the farm going. But you know what? When it's all said and done, the fact that his legacy and his spirit moved his family to Christ will be the only thing that will last. The only thing. For all these other things are temporary and are fading away. This abundant life that Jesus offers us is the gift. It is the gift. In 2 Corinthians 5, as we conclude, and I'm sorry I'm not as brief as Chip was last week, I've thought about this text a lot as I've gotten older. As I am no longer able to do the things I've been used to doing. As I struggle with whatever this is for 6 months, I think about this abundant life, and I think about what Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 16 and 17. A text that one elderly Quaker minister quoted all the time, Miss Helen Hester. Therefore, we do not lose heart, though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. This is the abundant life that Jesus offers us. And of course, that life that he offers is his very own life living in us. May the Lord bless the reading of scriptures today. May the Lord bless you, and wherever you are in your station in life, wherever you find yourself, this good shepherd is always speaking if we can hear his voice. He's always offering us the life of abundance, a living existence that mushrooms into beauty and grace and truth and love. This is the gift. We're going to want Marlene and Patty and Alicia come up and lead us in worship as we enter into open worship.
As Justin has poured out his heart to us and invited us, let's also pour out our heart in worship to Christ. Lord, I come, I confess, bowing here
that guides my heart. Lord, I need you, oh, I need you. Every hour I need you, my one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Where sin runs deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. And where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is the Christ in me. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness in Christ in me. Lord, I need you, oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. So teach my song to rise to you. When temptation finds my way, and when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. And when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Lord, I need you, oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, I need you, oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid rock, from the fearless drought and storm. What heights of love, what depths of peace, when fears are stilled, when strife cease. My comforter, my all in all, here in the love of Christ I stand. In Christ alone, who took on flesh, fullness of God in helpless babe, this gift of love and righteousness, sown by the ones he came to save, till on that cross, as Jesus died, the wrath of God was satisfied. No tender voice like thine can peace afford. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. I need thee every hour. Stay thou nearby. Temptations lose their power when thou art nigh. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. I need thee every hour. Enjoy your pain. Come quickly and abide, or life is in vain. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless my now, my Savior. I come to thee. I need thee every hour. Teach me thy will. Thy promises so rich in me fulfill. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee. I need thee, oh, I need thee. Every hour I need thee. Oh, bless me now, my Savior. I come to thee.
We have met with Jesus today. We have met him in song and in praise and prayer, in the reading of the scriptures and the proclaiming of the good news. And one of the things that I failed to mention is that word Zoe, I come to give you life and life abundant. Not only is it about life and living existence, in the Gospels in the New Testament, that word also refers to the forgiveness of the brokenness and the sins we've committed against God. Is that where his new life comes from, is out of that forgiveness, out of the cross of Christ. And it's out of that cross of Christ, which we've left this up here for at least till Pentecost. Life springs up out of the cross, out of death, the death of ourselves, so that Christ may live in us. So that's what Jesus offers every day, every hour, every moment. Life and life abundant. Now may you go in the peace and the grace and the beauty of Jesus' love. Knowing, well, actually we can't know how deeply we are accepted. Amen. Give someone the right hand of fellowship and bless them on the way out.